Hey, Eagle Run 23 here. If you have one of these Fiskars Pruners, you need to watch this video. I'm going to show you how to take them apart and clean them and keep them oiled. I spent quite a bit of time yesterday working on this one. You can see that nice bevel shine in there. I'll show you how to clean those up. These, I used them today, and they worked pretty good. I'm still not super happy with the amount of deflection that happens sometimes when you're cutting smaller stuff that's still pretty stout, pretty hard. I was trimming actually some tree branches, which this is not the correct thing to do that with, but some small little tree branches, we were just kind of pruning some of those, and a couple of them, they twist out here. So I'm going to show you how to fix that a little bit. The part's super simple. I have 3 pairs of these. These are we're going to work on, and this one I've already got taken apart. So I can kind of show you how they come apart. You first have this lock. I like to take that out first so I don't lose it. It does have an Allen key on the back. I don't know why Fiskars use 3 different types of fasteners here, but we have an Allen key here and a Phillips. You just unscrew that and comes out like that, and then you have a nut here. I prefer to just because there's nuts on each side. It's a 10 millimeter and that fits on there, but it will spin, so I prefer to just put that in my vise. That way I don't lose it. I put the bolt in the vise and then I undo this and it comes off, and it comes out and looks like that. And there's a spacer here that you want to make sure you pay attention to. It is what spaces it out here so that it all lines up even. So that's important. It won't work without it. So this little spacer, a nut and a bolt. So I'm going to run this through the wire wheel and get it all cleaned up, and I'll be right back. So having a wire wheel is not entirely necessary. It does help clean up, some of the parts and things, make them shiny and looking new, but it's definitely not necessary. But if you have one, use it. If not, you can just get by with cleaning this really well, degreaser, make sure it's all nice and clean, there's no junk on there. So I'm going to start on the back, and the only thing that's kind of weird that you might not have, you got to have a whetstone to do this. This is a coarse and fine that you can get on Amazon. They're not expensive, but I'm going to start on the back, and I'm just going to hold this flat down to my piece, and we're going to use back and forth strokes, and you'll be able to, I'll come back and show you a little bit about what that does. Okay, so you need a little bit of soapy water. I just have it in a spray bottle here. So we're just going to press this down and use back and forth strokes. We're on the fine side because we don't really have any damage that we're trying to address. Back and forth like this, and then we'll switch it over to the other side here in just a second. Down there. So we'll keep going here on the stone until we have this all nice and smooth. Okay, we now have contact all the way across the back, and so we can say that this is relatively flat and ready to go. Now, a lot of times people will say to use some of those knife sharpeners that you run across the tip, and I've seen guys do that with these. They don't work on this type of pruner for a simple reason. This is a single bevel design. It's not like a pocket knife that has two, or a kitchen knife that has 2 bevels that come together. It only has one flat side, and then it has the bevel coming to it. So if you run that across there, you're making the back not flat. Might work for a little while, but in the long run, you're not going to have a sharp tool. So now that our back is flat, we can concentrate on the front. Now I'm going to switch over to the coarse side here, and we're going to try to find our angle, and we're going to make smooth strokes across the knife so we can get rid of any of that damage. You can feel across here, first of all, this is not sharp at all, and there's a little bit of damage in there you can feel with your fingernail. So we're going to work on that. Alright, so after some back and forth here, you can see we're left with a really nice edge. And I finished on the fine, and got a really nice bevel there. It's sharp, you can feel kind of dig a little bit, which kind of lets you know it's sharp. We could do a paper test or whatever, but I'm going to finish here on the back where we started. I want to just make sure that I'm moving that burr to the edge, and that we're just as flat as we can get, and that makes it even feel a little bit sharper. Alright. Okay, so next we want to pay attention to the bottom part of the pruner, and it's important that this also be free from any damage, which this one does not have any damage. This is a bigger piece of metal, so it would take quite a bit to chunk this up, but we want to spend a little bit of time making sure that's nice and flat so that we have a good surface when this comes down and chomps, so we have a nice flat surface. Now it comes together on this side actually, and so that where they mate right there, we want to make sure that's just as smooth as it can get. Alright, if you don't have one of these whetstones, you might have one that maybe came with a pocket knife or something. This is one that came with a buck knife, and this is an Arkansas stone. They also have Japanese stones, and they're just different types of stones. This is one that came with a pocket knife, and it would also work. It's finer, so it's going to take a lot of time to repair some damage, but it is possible with any whetstone. You just want to make sure you avoid the kind that you run across the tip. That doesn't work for these. That works for kitchen knives and pocket knives, but it doesn't work for single bevel edges like this one. So our back is flat, we're smooth here, the inside is good, we're going to have a nice smooth mating surface, and we can get this put back together. Assembly is pretty easy. Start with this one here on the bottom. It kind of helps hold it all together. Next goes our spacer. I'm just going to barely tighten this one. Spin it on the back side on me. Just going to tighten this enough to help me hold it all together. It's nice if you have something to base it on. There's a little spring right there. If your pliers are not coming back very quickly, you can also bend that spring up a little bit, and that will give you a little bit more tension, but it should be set fine the way that it is. There we go. And then this one goes together with a bolt. Put the bolt through on the back side. Get it lined up. And you got to push back against that spring, and it comes right through. Now that is a nylon nut, and so it's going to provide tension right away. So I'm going to put this in the vise and tighten it up. Okay, so it is a little bit awkward to tighten that screw, just because you have to have a screwdriver on each side. I put one side in the vise. If you don't have a vise, you just got to do 2 screwdrivers. You need a third hand, but you can do 2 screwdrivers and tighten that down. And then the nut is tight. Now that nut tension will provide some feedback here, so make sure that it's not too tight or you won't be able to close them easily. I can feel this surface right here mating all the way through. It's nice and tight all the way across, and these should be good to go. Last thing is we're going to put our lock in. If it spins on you, you can put a Allen key in the back there, but finger tight seems to work for me. Making sure that slides back and forth. Open, lock. Alright, so when you're done, a little bit of oil on the blade and then the mechanism will help keep it all moving smooth and rust free. Just get that all through there. And this is a really tight pair. I think these are going to work great. Now wipe off any excess oil. Now regular maintenance on these will be oiling, making sure that they stay clean, and if you have any damage in your blade, try to fix that as soon as you can. Hey, Eagle Run 2-3, we're all done here. That's how to clean and take apart and sharpen and tune up a pair of Fiskars pruners. Thanks for watching.